is I want to first show you the eval to make sure that you've done that and where you can get it. So let me share my screen. God, I can't see anything with my microphone here. Oh gosh, it's doing the like screen within a screen thing. Ooh, that's annoying. Here we go. All right, so this is where you will get the mental game eval. So this one, it's mentalsweetspot.com/dream season. This is the one geared towards coaches. So if you watch this, it's what, 5.5 minutes? You'll be able to just jot down your ratings of the team on a score of 1 to 5 on the 7 C's. So we'll talk about what it looks like to be committed on the field and what it doesn't look like. Competitive, confident, composed, in control, courageous, and consistent. That is the first time I've said them all 7 straight in a row. So go there first, and then if you really want to be an overachiever, you can head to mentalsweetspot.com/eval and send that link to your girls, and they can take it themselves. That one's talking directly to them, some more in their language, and they can just rate it on the computer, and then it'll give them their scores at the end, and they can email that directly to you. So they'll go through and you tell them, send it to my email, and you should get that in your inbox. So then you'll have all these wonderful scores and what to do with them. So let's start this guy, but actually bring it up so we can see. All right, so here's our guide. I don't know why it zoomed down. So we named this the Guide to Crafting Your Dream Season because we want you to think big this way. So got to start with the beginning with, God, that was ugly. First, talking about basically like, why do you get to talk about your dream season? Why are you the kind of coach this is for? It's because of these things right here. We talked about these and we talked back and forth about, okay, what makes the type of coach that we love to work with, that are like our people? It's this. You're dedicated and you're a lifelong learner. You do everything you can to provide your players with the tools they need to succeed. You want to help them grow as people, not just athletes. And you'll do whatever it takes to help your team go to the next level, because that's what we do as coaches, right? We always see the next level, what they can do, what more they're capable of. So if you're that type of person, a little raise your hand emoji. If the comment section would work, that would be lovely, but oh well. So let me get back to this guy. Let's go back. My screen share working?
No.
It's me still, right?
Yep.
Let me go back. Okay, let me get the page up. How about now?
Yep, we're good now.
Perfect. That you didn't need to see that anyway. But this you need to see. So, talking about your dream season. We could wave a magic wand and you can guarantee your dream season, regardless of whatever typical setbacks and things you have to deal with, because we know that'll happen. But what does that look like? So I want you to take a second to think about it. We won't pause enough to really go through this whole worksheet right now, but I want to give you an idea of how we would do it. So imagine you're looking out across your field after your end of season banquet, because we all have those. How does it feel? If a loved one is standing next to you, what are you telling them? What have you just celebrated with your players in the banquet? These are things I want you to imagine in your mind. What are you celebrating? What are the feelings that go along with it? So, Alicia, get to put you on the spot. Right now, for next season, what are some things you're seeing and some things you're feeling?
Sense of pride, for sure. I want my kids to be very confident, resilient. I know we've talked about this before, fearless. I still, even though those were our Y words from last year, I still really want that at the end of the day for my kids to be resilient and fearless. And that is what makes me, happy, prideful, and excited as a coach, when at the end of the season, I can see that, feel that.
I love. You always catch me for saying, I love that, but I do. So that is where I want you guys to start. And now the next piece of it is look back at, keep switching back. My bad. I wanted to make sure we could see Alicia. So however you want to draw it down, write it down. It's really important to not just say it. Who said it? I don't know who said this, but don't just think it, ink it. So write it down here. It's really important. And then the next step is to tell somebody about it. So we'll get to that later. But before we start planning, we need to declare your non-negotiables. So we as coaches, we said it before, you give a lot, you're willing to do whatever it takes, but there are some things that you shouldn't sacrifice. So what are you not willing to sacrifice? Is it, I don't want to spend too much time away from my family and personal life? I mean, we're all aware that we have to spend quite a bit of time away from that, but there is a point where it's too much. How about you're not willing to change your core coaching beliefs? Maybe this stuff sounds great, but you don't really feel connected to it. Then maybe it's not for you. Or maybe you had one idea in your head of your dream season and it still doesn't feel like it's within your coaching style to do. Maybe we need to rethink it. Or how about I will not sacrifice my health or sleep? I think that's one thing we have to make ourselves commit to. So why don't we just write that one down? Because otherwise we won't stick to it. Am I right, Alicia?
Absolutely.
What are some other non-negotiables you can think of, Alicia?
That's hard for me to think of an additional one, but for me, the most important one is the middle. I'm not willing to sacrifice, I guess my process goals and my process that I have established. I'm not willing to sacrifice that, right? So when you're going through the season, and we've well documented this, when you're in your lows, like you've got to stick with it. So that's what I'm not willing to sacrifice, is to abandon the things that I believe in just because things aren't going well.
That's another one you have to declare, because in those lows, nothing is easier than like, let's come up with something else or shift gears, something. But yeah, that sticking with it is huge. I like that. All right. So good. Write those down. And then you go on to our next piece. So first we got to look at what obstacles the team is currently facing. So maybe you've already been working with your team a little bit this season. Maybe you've seen them and know, or maybe you're basing this off of last season. But either way, go back to your scores that you got on the mental game eval and start from there. So maybe the two lowest scores, almost always confidence. So we can go ahead and use that one as an example. And maybe courageous. So maybe those are the two I want to focus on. Maybe it's 3. Maybe it's just 1. Maybe you feel like you need a boost in all of them and it's going to take a more well-rounded attack for this year. But what do you need to focus on most to help your girls achieve their dream this year? So Alicia, you haven't worked with your girls yet. What do you suspect will be the things that you focus on this year?
Confidence and consistency.
I like that. Sure. How do you know?
Because that's what we struggled with last year, up until the very, very end. So I would use that very, very end as a building block. This year we will be a little more seasoned. We have a lot of returners coming back. So let's continue to work on building that consistency. And as you mentioned, confidence is always there, right? So continue to build the confidence based on past successes and some of the other things that we've talked about, but for sure, consistency.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it is nice because I coach college, high school, we had the 4-year structure. But it'd be interesting to me to see youth teams, to see junior college teams, or just a team that has a bunch of new people, how they attack that. So I'm really interested to see like all new things this year. Again, probably always confidence, but it's interesting to see what each team brings each year.
Sure. Yep.
Have you ever been surprised? Like you thought it was going to be one thing?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've been surprised by thinking that it wasn't going to be consistent, but it was much sooner than I expected it to kind of come together. And then the flip, I've had the opposite as well happen. And I think everything is different, but I'd say sometimes we've had some really confident teams, and that is a pleasant surprise, but that's the one thing I think that's the hardest for all kids to do, or to think about, or to be confident. So That's what I would say.
That was the same. Always usually underlying some bit of confidence, but kind of like a pleasant surprise sometimes. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
Good job. Like, you're a lot more composed than I expected. Good work.
Right.
All right, let's get this next one up here. I wish there was a faster button. I'm sorry for all those little things in between. All right, so next is now shift it. So what will it take to remove those obstacles? So you got the main obstacles and you got to kind of figure out what your players need to learn. So we talked about giving them the tools to succeed. So it's not just like I heard from my coaches all along, like you need more confidence. You should be doing this, like stop beating yourself up. But I needed something tangible to replace those negative thoughts I had. I needed something to work on in drills, in practice, to actually work through the stuff going through my head. So how are you going to get them to shift their mindset? What's it going to take? Do you need resources? Do you need to talk with them more? Do you need to learn what their issues are first? So what do you think, Alicia, with your team, it's going to take to remove those obstacles?
I think for me, this season will be talking to them a little bit differently. Just because most of them will have heard a lot of the things that, we talked about last year. Just like we were talking about earlier today, the amount of things that I've learned in the last 6 months and how to really make sure that conversation is weaved in every single day. That will help, I think, speed up the process a little bit and remove some of those obstacles that sometimes feel like they take most of the season, if not all the season, to try to get over or around. So I think that trying to integrate those conversations a little more consistently on my end will be helpful to speeding up that process.
What do you think it is that will help you do it more consistently this year compared to last season?
Even a little more structure than what we had before, right? So, when we talk about doing this business, right, it was a structured plan, and I did not do the job that I would have liked to, I think, to make sure that all of that was as structured in practice, because again, you get a little bit away from the details. So I think doing a little bit more practice planning up front, and laying it out and being more structured with that helps take away that extra time that it takes to plan the practice. So then you can focus on the actual things that you need to when it comes to, confidence and consistency and all the C's for sure. That would be very helpful for me.
Yeah. I was gonna say the same thing. Like it's totally common because if you don't have all this stuff to front load it, we have a whole structure set out now that we've been working on for a whole year basically. And we had time to think about it. Whereas like we had the idea and we knew what we wanted to do. We didn't have the time. So it's kind of like, okay, what else can we cover? What next? What next? Right. So I'm excited to see the flow this year now that we've got it more streamlined almost.
Right. And somehow more integrated into every day, right? So that's the part that I thought I was doing a good job of, but I know that I could do better for sure.
That's just getting more used to the language and the language, I think.
Yep. I
love that. Okay. So it's a quick plan there. There'll be a lot more details. Don't you guys worry. So, whoop. Now, time to commit. So I'm just going to read this. So, got to be honest, even with the best of intentions, it is so easy to let this slip. We've done it. This is why this has been the main focus of our business, is because even with this passion for the mental game and training in it, it is so easy to miss things and miss opportunities to teach about the mental game because there's just so many things going on. You've got practice to plan. You've got, one person's missing, so I've got to completely change the practice plan. And then a coach can't be there, so you got to change that, and you got to sign the other coach's thing. And then there's weather, and then it's way too many things. So that's part of what we discovered. We had an inkling before, but even more so now, that you have to plan it all out ahead of time and be flexible with it, of course. But just having that off your plate frees up so much more brain space and time, I think. So, boop, here. Can I get all in one shot? Yes, I can. So this is what we suggest based on what we did last year, and then some tweaks that we're going to go into this year. So right now, you're already doing this. You're going over this worksheet. Also go over it with your coaching staff and decide exactly what you need to fulfill this plan. In preseason or early in season, choose one mental skill to cover each week max. If you're a college coach, maybe like with the 5 days, I could cover 2 in a week, but that was still, I felt pushing it. So I like 1 a week max. And then if you have to extend it to the next week, that's fine. But then it builds into that language the whole week, like Alicia was talking about. If you are trying to do it all in one day, it's really hard to make all the points and get the girls to understand what you're talking about so quickly. So that once you decide the skill, it's 30 minutes at the beginning of the week. Alicia and I are both fans of classroom sessions. Kind of gets the girls out of like the go mode of their usual, like walk in, warm up, keep talking, but like sit them in the classroom, get them to focus in just 30 minutes of focused education about whatever that mental skill is you're working that day. And then when you get to in practice, you want to make sure that you are both testing and developing that skill with challenges, drills. The way we do it is we typically figure out what physical skill we want to work on first and then implement the mental skill. So beginning of the season, there's always some sort of throwing drill, getting communication down. And hey, if we're working on confidence that day, make it really hard. Put in a time limit so that, their confidence is going to wane a little bit and they have to pick themselves up and monitor their self-talk, that kind of thing. So boom, there you go. You've got your drill that works on both. And that's maybe takes 10, 20 minutes of practice planning. It'll be even less once you get used to it. And then at the end, always set the time because it's so easy to go over the practice plan. I did it every time. So I had to make sure I set the time on my calendar. Otherwise it was like, I think I can keep them for 10 more minutes. And then you feel guilty and they've got a million things to do too. So set 10 minutes aside, 10, not 5, 10, to discuss what they struggled with, what they did well, so their wins, and then the lessons learned. Pull from different people. You'll typically have more outgoing people that speak up first, but pull from everyone. Another fun thing is to have them say wins about each other, related to whatever topic that was, or just random physical skills, but pull out those mental topics as well. And then that's all you need to build this into your everyday. And as the season goes on, it gets easier and it takes less brain power. So once you get to mid-season, it's maybe 15, 20 minutes at the beginning of the week to talk about that topic. It's usually based on what happened in games that week. Kind of shapes the topic from then on out, unless you're still working through the C's like us. And then it always applies. There's always a lesson to be learned. So 15 to 20 minutes, get them engaged, relating to the topic, and then same thing, work it into practice. It'll be a lot easier as you go to just get used to talking about these things, bringing them up, calling a timeout mid-practice or mid-game, and pulling them aside and talking through when they're not doing that mental skill well. And then finally, by the end of the season, if you're doing this committed, you will start to see your players starting to talk about these things on their own. And it is so cool to see. I'll let Alicia talk more on this one, but that's when you know it's a job well done, when they start to pick up the language and take it themselves. So, Alicia, yes, you are up. Share how this worked for you last season, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit already, but how you're going to do it in the upcoming season.
Well, I think starting in the preseason, obviously the planning, right, that we're going through this, but, during the season, I always do classroom sessions, sometimes up to an hour, although that's not always feasible. So I would suggest maybe, especially in the beginning, 30 minutes at least to just start talking through some of the language with them, right? So when you're talking about confidence, you can, through the courses and in those classroom sessions, you can actually have the same language and they can start to understand it. They can relate to each other by talking about it. Like you mentioned, I always have the kids kind of talk about their experiences and feelings while under pressure or when they fail and things like that, because it helps open up the conversation, I think. So Also, I want to mention too is that we started making a drill bank, so we started making our own drill bank. All the coaches would go and try to find one or two drills that we would throw in a drill bank, and it's really kind of nice for putting a practice plan together, especially when you're kind of struggling with putting one together. Because after doing 20 in a row, you're like, okay, what else can I do to be just something different? But towards the end of the season, when they start doing the things and saying the things that you've been talking about all year, is when you know that it's really kind of clicking. I often see that, especially like from maybe some more seasoned kids, some experienced players that will share that with another player and kind of walk them through how they struggled with it and how they have gotten to be better, a better player for it, which is really kind of cool to watch those. Like the seniors will say, I remember when I was a freshman and, but you just got to stick with it, and coach knows, how to help you with that. So there's always that as well. So those conversations, I think, are, even if for 10 minutes a day, and I actually put it, like you mentioned, a line item in my practice plan, is invaluable.
Oh, that works perfectly, because I just read Alicia's, and she said she didn't graduate any seniors last year, and they made it to regional semifinals. So her big obstacle is going to be integrating the old and new players. And so I think what you just said is awesome. Like, you've already got the culture built that works. Mm-hmm. Now they can kind of seep into the new girls, and you can just build on it as opposed to having to start over.
Oh, for sure. Because the culture is established by the older players, that helps you as a coach, right? Because they're around in the locker room and during a timeout when you're not on the field. And that's what you really want for the older kids to help with the younger kids.
Mm-hmm. And then the second part, which is also, I think you'll relate to, she thinks she's going to have enough for a JV team. You two are the same person, but you spell your name differently. So some of the girls that played varsity may end up on JV. So that'll be another, not just culture thing, but like helping them through the mentality of going to the lower team, not lower team, no quotes, really lower team.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic in itself. But I think, I'm hoping at least, I think sometimes when you're dealing with younger kids, you think they understand, but they don't. We made it very clear that we were helping to try to bridge the gap last year, and that was really important. And whenever we talk to the kids, we always mention the program. This is what's best for the program. So last year, what was best for the program is that we kept everybody. This year, what's best for the program is that we have two teams. So it's a numbers thing. And, and then I would probably state it's where you will get a lot of more one-on-one instruction. You'll get some playing time, and that's where you're going to improve. So it's a tough situation to be in, but I believe very strongly every program needs a JV. That's how you build your talent. So it was very difficult not having one last year, but it was a challenge, but it worked out, and we all grew from it.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. You guys have the same story, but yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that you guys now have a JV. I think that it's hard to just have the one team. A, there's a lot of bodies, and B, they didn't have that development to get up to varsity level, because there can be such a big gap.
But we don't have one yet, so
fingers crossed.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're right. I didn't realize it wasn't solid. I think wishful thinking.
Yes, for sure.
Well, awesome. Okay, let's. Oh, I didn't share my screen. I was scrolling and you guys were just watching me look down. That's not fun. All right. So pause and reflect. So this is an important piece. So if you're anything like me, you get gung-ho, you like planning, you get going. And then before you know it, you've already started on this plan, and you should have paused to reflect because you missed a little piece or got it a little bit off. So if you feel confident that this is exactly what you need to move on to your dream season and make it a reality, you can go to step 7. But if there's still like maybe a little bit of a pause or a confusion, I'm not sure if this is going to work, just pause here and for a second and reevaluate with us. So we'll go through the steps again. So maybe you're hung up at step 1. Is this really the dream season I want? Is this what's really important to me as a coach? reflect back on those things that you wrote down. Is this the main thing that I want to make the main thing? Or is it something a little bit different? Like maybe you started out with, hey, my dream is to win the state championship. Maybe it's a little bit deeper than that. Maybe it's more like, no, I want to feel accomplished. Kind of like, Alicia, what we did with your team last year. So if you're feeling kind of like, maybe go back to that why and see if that's really the dream that you want. If you get stuck on step 2, are there some other non-negotiables that you need to add to make sure that the plan fits your needs? So maybe it's starting to feel heavy, like a lot of work, or like it's something you don't really want to do. Not everyone loves to find resources and books like we do, or not everyone loves to run classroom sessions. So maybe there's something else you can do. Maybe your non-negotiable is, I don't want to be in the classroom, but we can talk on the stands. Maybe it's something as simple as that. And the next step is, can I narrow down what the team needs to work on the most important things? So maybe when you got to step 3, you wrote down all the C's, all 7, and that's why you're feeling a little overwhelmed, because honestly, that's a lot. So maybe you can pare it down to 3 or 4 to start with, and then you can add in the others if you need to. If you get stuck on step 4, is there a more direct path to closing the gap? If you still feel like, I don't know if this is really going to help my girls gain confidence, maybe there's a better resource. Maybe there's a better strategy for you. Maybe a different way of approaching things. And then finally, step 5 is, how much time can I realistically commit? So I tend to overcommit and have to reel it back. Maybe it's enlisting some help in the planning process. So bring in your assistants or bring in the other coaches, and maybe even bring in the players to help speed that process up, or give other people tasks to do so you're not running everything yourself. Maybe there's a way you can delegate to make it seem like there's not so much on your plate. So after going through those, reflect again. How do you feel? You're still feeling skeptical? Stop. If you feel skeptical about this whole thing, this probably isn't for you. And there's no judgment in that. There are lots of ways to work on the mental game. This is our strategy that we found works, but maybe this isn't the right fit for you now, or maybe ever. But if not, no judgment, say goodbye. We're good to go. We've got lots of quick wins you can still implement with your team. But if you've made it this far, you most likely are committed and just aren't clear about how it's all going to work. So we can explain a little bit more. So before we jump on to the next one, Alicia, let's talk about last year, because I mean, you're stuck committed now. You don't get to not do this anymore. Last year, did you have any, I don't want to say hesitation, but any like that heavy feeling of like, not sure how this is going to work?
Which part's not going to work? The team
like
dynamic or the
implementing all of this stuff?
Oh no, I never felt that way, but I also have 7 years of experience of doing it. So
how about before the notebooks?
Before the notebooks and the class and the psych class, sports psych class and all, I had no clue, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't even know that I should be implementing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was the first learning lesson. And then it was the building on how to implement it on, like we've talked about before, the trial and error. So, but I've seen it work and do some amazing things for my girls. And so I never veer off of that, even though from sometimes, like if you look from one day to the next, you may not see some difference in that. And the whole season is hopefully this trajectory, right? But you're going to have those ups and downs, and I just never bail from it. I never question it. I never doubt it. I just know that every team, it's going to click for every team at a different point in time. Mm-hmm. And you pray from my standpoint, it's right when playoffs start or right before playoffs start. But sometimes, it happens a little sooner, and sometimes it happens right that halfway through the first playoff game. But it always happens. It's just at a different time frame for every team.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that, because the doubt always creeps in. It's our human brain. It's kind of a jerk. always doubting itself, always doubting the process. The whole trust the process phrase, they make it sound way too simple. Like, just saying trust the process is part of me trying to trust the process.
I think I do, but I think the kids take time to get there. I think that's what it is for them. They finally just kind of let go and trust it. And then that's when it's like, yeah, that's what I've been looking for. That takes every team and every player time. The more experienced teams, it happens quicker than the less experienced teams. And when you have a bunch of new players, who've never heard this before, it's like, oh my gosh, like, never heard this before. What do I do with this information? So, but when you've had these kids that have played for you for 3 and 4 years and they've heard it over and over and over again, and things really start to click junior, senior year. I've seen some amazing jumps and leaps and confidence and things like that between junior and senior, between sophomore year and junior and senior year. That's the patience. And that's what I've seen time and time and time again happen. So I stick with it. I know it's there, but I have to have the patience as well that it could take a player 3 to 4 years to get it. But that's where that voice that the players have in those conversations is so powerful, because they said, I've been where you've been, and trust me, it works. That's what's pretty cool.
Yes. The magic moment. What did we say the other day? That was, we said that in our podcast. All right. Let's move on to the last piece then. Oops. Let's get out of there. So, crafting your dream season. So, basically what Alicia did beforehand and what I did too was this top piece. So, a lot of people are already doing this. So, good job. You're already committing and you're getting the resources you need. So, she and I both have podcasts. Clearly, we made our own videos, quotes, books, making competitions in practice, doing conditioning tests. All these things are ways to both test and work on mental toughness. So this chart over here just shows like, hey, this is a really cheap way to do things. People are already doing it. The unfortunate side effect and the cost is time. So it takes a lot of time. And what we realized, mostly by talking with each other, we both think we love this stuff, but we didn't realize we were each missing something. So what Alicia just talked about with the patience piece, we decided that's a little bit what she was missing. And what I was missing was the relationship building piece. So we found that when we were spending all this time and honestly mental energy finding the resources, we got pumped about it. They were great, but then we missed the on-field piece because we just had no more energy left or no time in a lot of cases. So that's why we've come up with these resources here. They are different price levels for whatever your resources may be, but they take less and less time, which is amazing. So the Mental Training Foundation is what we suggest for coaches who like to do it on their own. They want to run it, but it will help get a ton of information and education to your girls way more easily. We've already gathered we got the videos, we got the education, we did the research, we've got the worksheets, the drills, the challenges, all of that there for you. And it'll take a little bit of time because you'll have to go through it and then teach your girls, but that can all be done on the front end. So that way you just lay it out in season and you're good to go. This next option, so that the foundation right now is $100. So first 50 coaches get it for $100. Go get that now. The next level up is the Mental Sweet Spot Academy. So this has the foundation in it, but you also get us. So what we were just discussing today, we're still hashing through all the details of how it's going to work. We want to get your feedback too. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But we want the academy to be us consulting you and then you taking it to your players. So we're there for you all season. This is a season-long thing, like what I did for Alicia. And with her, she and I talking back and forth all through season this year on the podcast. If you want to take a listen to that, it's the first, 13 episodes? 13 episodes. Get an idea for some of the things we worked through and things we did and things we added. We'll be doing that again this season. So that is a little bit more pricey. It'll be $400 when we get up to full price, or $40 a month if you want to break it into monthly payments. It's a commitment for the full year because we want to be able to work you through all of it, help you prepare, help you implement it in preseason, in the middle of season, help you get through the ups and downs, all that good stuff, sharing awesome resources and stuff along the way, giving you more if you need it. And then reflecting at the end of the year and flipping it right to the next season. But again, the first 50 coaches are getting in for half off. So $200 for the whole year. And we have a wait list open right now. So you can join that wait list and give us your feedback for exactly what you want. And then the final option, if you do have these resources, we used to have consulting packages from $2,000 all the way up to $10,000. And it has a ton of consulting hours where Alicia will work directly with your team. So we've got a team now. I'm pretty sure I can't mention names. So we've got a team now we're working with. And Alicia goes in weekly. We have a distance in between us. So she's been live with the team twice now, about to be a third time. And then in between, she does virtual sessions. So she leads these sessions with the girls. The girls go through the courses themselves. So that's saving you guys time on the back end. This is more for the coach who has just a lot of things going, really values the mental game and will implement it when they take the team back to practice, but doesn't have the time to put all this stuff together and run it on their own. So that one, again, is the most dollar signs, but the least amount of time. So you can focus your efforts on all the other hats you have to wear as a coach. So this is a lot of info at once. If you want more info, go to mentalsweetspot.com/services. And then if you want to look, that'll be our three services here. But if you also want to see some of our top favorite books, podcasts, and videos, go to mentalsweetspot.com/resources. We do not judge if you don't work with us yet. We love you and we know you're our people and we will get to work with you at some point. We know it, but we at least want you to have access to some awesome resources and just start implementing this daily. So Alicia, I will stop blabbing now and take it back to you. Alicia K on the Facebook page has not responded yet. So I think she's just watching. But anything else you would like to add as far as like your best tips for really integrating this in everything you do?
Well, for sure, starting with the culture piece, right? You got to establish that strong culture, and making sure that you start building those relationships with your players first thing. That helps the whole process down the road. And by starting with a committed course, I think is really where, you start that foundation for the mental training. That's why we have it first, where you can really talk to the girls about not only being committed to the culture, that's established, right, and that they own, but also the commitment to each other, the commitment to the coaches, the commitment to the process, right? There's a lot of commitment that's rolled up into that course. And ultimately that sets the tone for the commitment to the mental foundation training, right? So, and then after that's established really early on, we did themes of the week, which I would convert from those courses to the course of the week. But be flexible with that. Just like you need to be flexible and adaptable with your practice planning, you need to maybe spend an extra week on a course because the confidence piece is just really low. So you might want to spend 2 weeks on that instead. But having those courses, going through them first, there's plenty of drills that are in those courses, and that will help you start to understand how to integrate that particular theme of the week into any drill, right? So it's that constant conversation. So my tips would be, just like I mentioned, you're starting with that culture and starting that strong foundation, working through the courses, making sure the drills are connected to the courses, and setting aside a time every single day, even if it's just 10 minutes, set aside classroom time and 10 minutes a day to make sure that conversation is constantly happening.
Yes. Now I want your season to start. It's too long from now.
I know. We got a long way to go.
Yeah, Stephen Michigan sports.
I know.
Fine. It'd be like Colorado and what is it, Missouri? Who else has fall softball? They're almost done.
I know. We still have to first get to winter and then go through winter and then maybe start to warm up before we even start to even think about playing. So it's a long time away.
Warm up is a relative term.
This is true. Like in the 40s after snow.
I loved that though. And now I'm in. Oh, someone's writing. No, I lied. I was teased. All right. I think we covered it all. This will be recorded and I will post it. I haven't posted one of these before, so I will have to figure out the tech. Because you know me, always some sort of glitch. But then everybody else can watch it and walk through it and hopefully go through their guides on their own and with their staffs. And then everybody check back in with us. Tell us how it's going. We want to hear what those dream seasons are. All right.
That's it.
That's all I got. All right. I'm signing off.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.